Good evening. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. I am your host, Mr. Justin. And tonight we're going to be talking about the science around why women want to be governed, or why women want to be led. I chose governed because, it sounds cooler. And it sounds a lot cooler. I hope you're having a good weekend so far. Right now in New York, we're looking at a giant fucking snowstorm. And somewhere around 10, 12 inches were expected overnight. So yeah, it's fucking up all kinds of stuff. But it was weird because just yesterday it was 50 degrees. Yeah, this winter's been a bit of an identity crisis. So yeah, we're going to be going into the science around why women want to be governed, and also just looking at different aspects, some sociological stuff, some information around evolutionary psychology, or just evolution period, and around some eroticism, BDSM, and why these things make sense. And the funny thing is that there's so much pushback, and the funny thing is that it's something that's natural. And people might say, well, it's a social construct, it's not natural. And I could understand that. But the thing is that you got this same sort of pattern echoing across various cultures, across time. And if it's that constant, like, can we say that it's something unnatural? I don't know. But it is a common occurrence. At least we can say that. It's a regular occurring thing where women, they want to be governed in some sort of way. And this is not, of course, not all women, but it's a commonality, right? And for the girls that don't want to be, that's perfectly fine, right? Like, I don't really care what girls are wanting to do as individuals. Live your life. I really don't mind. Oh, that's super cool. I gotta remind myself of that. So we're gonna get into a whole bunch of other stuff like that. 1 second. Okay. Yep. And apparently my stalker has found my other Instagram, which is great. It's like the guy won't leave me the fuck alone. And the thing is that, like, with stuff like Instagram, you can't really report people because they can have a dozen emails and a dozen different accounts. So it really doesn't do anything. Like, there's really no security for harassment on Instagram, because they can just always just create another sock account. So it's kind of fucked up in that way. But whatever. I guess if you got haters, you're doing something right. At least that's what they say. I don't know how much that's going to benefit me, aside from having my shit shut down. But anyways, so let's not waste any time, and let's get right into the science behind women want to be governed or want to be led. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves that life is short, it's finite, and full of illusions that we chase to feel in control. We have about 4,000 weeks on this planet, if we're lucky, and yet we spend so much of it pretending we are the masters of our own universe. So tonight we're going to get into this great topic of women craving being governed, led, directed, dominated in that, it just did that the natural way. And not because it's some like fairy tale or societal script, but because it's wired into our biology, it's wired into our psychology, and the messy social structures we built. This isn't about like empowerment anthems or equality checklists or anything like that. It's about why submission is a profound turn on for lots and lots of women. making her pussy wet and her body yield like it's finally exhaling after holding her breath like practically her entire life. So think of it as like an antidote to the modern delusion of total independence and the kind that leaves us exhausted, anxious, and ironically less alive. So I'm approaching this not as like a self-help guru, but in the spirit of facing reality head on, drawing from evolutionary psychology, sociology, and the studies that peel back the layers which make us tick. And we'll wander through the neurology of it, the erotic pull of polarity, the freedom and presence, and the psychology of being claimed. And then tie it up with why the body tells no lies. Along with the way, we'll touch on some BDSM stuff because there's a cultural laboratory for this dynamic. And it's there, it's raw, it's consensual, but it's unfiltered. And this isn't really a lecture to change your life. It's a reflection on why we're fighting our nature and how it often backfires. And embracing it might just make those finite weeks a hell of a lot more ecstatic. So the neurology of arousal, where safety flips the switch. Evolutionary psychology tells us it's women's brains have evolved in a world of real dangers, right? We all know this. Okay, it's like all over like red pill stuff. Okay, predators, scarcity, tribal conflicts, that sort of shit. The amygdala, right, that part of our brain, which is like the alarm system in our mind. It's not just a quirk; it's a survival tool honed over a millennia, tons and tons of generations. And studies from researchers like Jock Panskep show us how this fear center keeps us vigilant. But in women, this particularly tunes to relational and environmental threats. When she's governing everything, bills, schedules, emotional labor, her amygdala stays on in a tension state, like a heightened alert state. And sociology adds context. Okay, so in modern societies, women often have to bear the mental load, as a 2017 study in the American Sociological Review highlighted, juggling work, home, and relationships in a way that spiked cortisol levels. High stress, arousal plummets. It's not a weakness, it's just biology saying, fix the threats first before I can get horny. But when a man governs, com- so so when a man governs her competently, decisive, handling the chaos without fanfare, it quiets that alarm system. And evolutionary psych suggests that this mirrors ancestral pairings. Strong leaders meant better survival odds for offspring, right? And pretty much like the tribes. A 2015 meta-analysis in evolutionary psychology reviewed dozens of studies showing women prefer dominant traits in mates during fertile phases. Right, so we all know this. Like when she's ovulating, she seeks more dominant men, or is just turned on by that whole archetype. Okay, and so preferring dominant traits in mates during fertile phases, linking it to genetic fitness. Neurologically, this shifts her from the parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest, or as we're talking here, rest and get wet. Without the burden, oxytocin surges, dopamine flows, and blood rushes to her pussy, making it wet and responsive. It's not magic, it's just the body's pragmatic response to the perceived safety. Okay. But that's in the context of the later phase, or like, what is it, like a third phase of her cycle when she's ovulating. So like I said, like the parasympathetic state, it like shifts into that. And this is where she's like it's the rest and digest. That's the classical term for that. So when we kind of add BDSM to this, it throws this into sharp relief. In kink communities, topping and bottoming, they're not games, or dom and sub, they're not games. They're structured in ways to explore this neurology. A 2013 study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine found that BDSM practitioners report lower anxiety and higher relationship satisfaction, partly because submission allows deliberate amygdala shutdown. Okay. So women in sub roles, they often describe it as this like a feeling of flying, okay, a lightness, a mental release where the Dom's governance frees them from decision fatigue. And one participant in a 2020 sociological survey from the University of California noted that when he ties me up and commands, My mind stops racing. My body just opens. It's evolutionary echo. Trust in a leader lets vulnerability thrive, turning fear into fuel for arousal. If you're skeptical, consider how vanilla sex often flops when she's stressed, right? She gets stressed out, work is really busy, the kids, this thing, her friend, her mom, whatever, blah, 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 or something with her husband. And her pussy gets dry, right? Her mind is elsewhere, she's tense. Okay, but you govern well and you kind of release her from that mental load, not by like taking on her tasks, but that's a whole other skill in itself of releasing her mental load. But this is governing well, and the biology responds in kind, and she gets more relaxed. She becomes more vulnerable. You can more easily bring her into a submissive state, and she gets aroused very, very easily. So now consider the erotic tension of the gap, that polarity between leader and led. Evolutionary psychology posits eroticism thrives on difference, not sameness. And Richard Dawkins, the selfish gene, in that framework, mating strategies favor complementary roles, men as pursuers, women as selectors, creating tension that sparks desire. Sociologically, this gap has been eroded in egalitarian societies, leading to what a 2018 study in special forces called intimacy deficits coupled two equal, end up with flat sex lives. And that makes a whole lot of sense. Okay. When the man is like the woman's like the man, and they're just kind of like this partnership of gray, like working things out to just get through life in an even keeled way, there's no polarity. And they have flat sex lives. Polarity isn't oppression. It's electricity. It's creating poles. And when a man occupies the dominant space, being assertive, being bold, taking on the leadership role, and she the receptive, the balance creates a charge. The imbalance creates a charge. And many studies support this. There was a 2008 experiment in the Archives of Sexual Behavior used erotic stories to test arousal. Women reported higher genital response, measured by vaginal pulse amplitude, essentially how wet and swollen the pussy got, to narratives of dominant men overpowering them versus egalitarian scenarios, right? So, and this is proof by the market. Okay, take a look at let's just quickly look. Let me just find out really quick. What was the revenue of the erotic genre in 2025? So the estimated scale is about 156 billion just on erotic literature. In the US alone, romance sold about 51 million units annually and has more than doubled in volume since 2021. Doubled in volume since 2021, accounting for roughly 1/5 of adult fiction sales. Erotic fiction is a subslice of that romance category, often overlapping with romantic erotic, steamy romance, or new adult romance. In France, new romance, which is romance with explicit erotic elements, generated about 75 million euros, which is about $80 million in 2023, from 6 million copies sold. In the UK, it's about 85 million. And erotic fiction value in some markets has been growing faster than general fiction, which increases around 18% year over year in certain segments. So global romance market, including subgenres, many billions annually, around like 150 billion. Explicit erotic literature, roughly 1 to 3 billion globally per year when combining traditional publishing, ebooks, audiobooks, and self-publishing ecosystems. So as you can see, erotic literature and its subgenres is a massive industry, okay? And in None of it, and I'm telling you, none of it is there an egalitarian story. None. There is not one erotic story depicting an egalitarian relationship between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. It's non-existent. Or like a vampire and a woman, or werewolf and a woman. Like none of it. None of it is egalitarian. So this just tells you that desire is linked to polarity. It is not linked to egalitarianism. So fellas, stop being so damn nice. Stop trying to be so friendly. Stop trying to be her friend. Now, that doesn't mean to be an asshole. It just means stop trying to be her friend. You know, it's not black or white. Like there's actually like a third area, right? It's not just 1 or 0. So getting back on track here. So it shows that that they got aroused in that study, the 2008 study, that they got really aroused to narratives of dominant men overpowering them versus egalitarian scenarios. Evolutionarily, this signals superior mate, right? Superior mate. His will overcomes hers, mimicking conquest that ensured strong progeny. In BDSM, this gap is explicit. The Dom-Sub contrast amplifies it. It sets the stage for it to exist, with subs often experiencing subspace, which is a euphoric high that comes from surrender in a number of areas. So for those of you that don't really know like what subspace is, it's a state. Okay, so there's some people who consider being submissive as being in subspace, and that's just not the case. Did my audio go out? I just hear like this weird beep in my ears. What do you got here? Does that include when handling situations with my child's mother? I don't know what this is. Like, make that a complete question, and maybe I can help you with that. Because I don't. That's linked to something that I said, and I don't know what you mean. Oh, that's not what I was looking for. So just to explain, like the subspace. Okay, so I mean, although everyone in the BDSM scene has heard of endorphins, actually very, very few people really understand like what they are, how they work, what the high is all about, and how one can correctly induce the body to produce them. And so, so that's basically like what the subspace is. It's like this. It's like loading the brain with endorphins and adrenaline. You know, because typically subs drop into subspace due to a mixture of pain, of like physical pain and physical pleasure, and it's this like this overload, this deluge of these chemicals, and it kind of like kicks the mind off into an altered state. It's very much like she's high on something. If she's deep into subspace, like her nervous system is just very much overloaded. Her the receptors in her mind or in her brain are very much overloaded with these chemicals. Women can become, well, any sub who's in subspace, they can become basically non-responsive. Like they're there, but they're not there. Kind of like if you've ever experienced someone who's in a K-hole, like for people who do like ketamine. I was in the rave scene back in the 90s when it was first starting, and I remember when ketamine came onto the drug market back then, and you could see like kids who were in K-holes, and they're basically like just sitting in a corner like catatonic. And I asked them like what it's like, and they said like, well, imagine your best day that you've ever had multiplied by 10, and you're surrounded by all of your favorite things. Like that's the emotional feeling of it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. And so like that's kind of what I've been told subspace is like. but it's like very floaty, very light, and it's very euphoric. And for those who have never experienced subspace before, have never seen it, like seeing a woman drop into subspace, it can be very um, it can be very jarring because you think maybe she's dying or she's dead or she's like slipped into a coma or something like that. But she's not, right? And she'll like eventually like just kind of come out of it when the stimuli stops. Okay, so you stop like producing the high levels of pleasure and pain, and eventually those chemicals drain from the brain, and things kind of slowly come back to normal. But she's going to be at a deficit. Okay, so all those like good chemicals, they'll drop down below the par level, and that's when she's feeling really low. And this is what's known as sub drop. And in sub drop, they just feel awful. Like it's like like anything else, like drinking too much and having a hangover. Like if you've spent a night doing cocaine, the next day you just kind of feel flat and dead. Like not dead as in death, but just like a dead battery. Um, any kind of like, or if you spend a night like doing ecstasy or rolling on Molly, it's the same sort of thing. You just feel low, not necessarily depressed, just low. Like everything's just low. So you need like some comforting. Well, she would need some comforting pick me ups. Okay, like a warm bath, some nice music, like a soft blanket, maybe some natural furs on her skin if you're okay with that. Some chocolates. Like chocolates are always very good because chocolate, if you didn't know, is the only food known so far to stimulate all of the taste buds at the same time, right? So if you eat a certain something, typically foods will only activate like a couple of different areas on the tongue. And the tongue, the tongue has like various areas of taste. There's like a bitter area, there's a salty area, there's a sweet area, a savory area, and chocolate activates the entire tongue all at once. So it produces like an immediate pick me up, right? It produces like good feelings, and I noticed like in Harry Potter, like whenever kids got injured, they were like, "Here, eat some chocolate." But anyways, and then if it's dark chocolate, then there's going to be a little bit of caffeine in there. Excuse me. I would advise using dark chocolate and not that bullshit called milk chocolate, because there's no reason for chocolate to have dairy in it. It just doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, so you get some dark chocolate, some nice music, maybe like a scented candle, like just nice things to kind of like bring her down. You hold her, pet her hair, or whatever sort of thing that she might know that would allow her to feel comfort. Okay. And so you kind of like, as she's low, the aftercare, right, which is what this is called, it sort of like raises her up back to like the surface of the water again. Okay, back up to the horizon. And um, a lot of girls are different. Like they all have their different needs. Like what they know like helps them feel better. But you should have like some basics on hand, right? Like I keep like a rabbit's pelt. Like I bought a rabbit's pelt off of eBay, and I folded it in half, and it was like a long strip kind of, and it was about maybe 8 inches wide. And then I stitched the sides so I can basically put it on my hand like a mitt, like an oven mitt that doesn't have a thumb. And so I'll use this to like stroke the body, all right, and just kind of like gently stroke the skin, and it's very relaxing. It stimulates the nerves on the skin, but like in a very gentle way, as opposed to like whatever sort of intense, whipping or branding or whatever the fuck you were doing. Okay. It's very much opposed to that. I would recommend getting what's known as arnica cream. All right. If you're not familiar with arnica, it's a plant that maybe the roots or something. I don't know, but it's turned into gels. It's turned into creams. You can also take like pills that dissolve under your tongue, and it's pain relief. So, and it's very fast acting. It's not very deep, so it doesn't like help with like deep muscle soreness, but like surface level muscle soreness, skin bruises and things like that, it can certainly help with that. So you can do some massage with arnica cream. There's just a number of stuff that you can do. And this helps her come back out of that low portion of subdrop. Okay. So so if you're doing any sort of like intense stuff, and this I would actually recommend even if you're not doing anything with BDSM, because girls can get thrown into a like a certain depth of subspace even through rough sex. Okay. Because subspace has depth to it, right? Just like, it can be like 5 meters below surface, 10, 20, 50, 100, right? And 100 is basically where she's catatonic. Okay. But like rough sex can bring a girl into a certain level of subspace, where she's getting lost in the moment. Okay. She's had a number of orgasms. She's losing sense of like where she is, what's happening. The line between self and experience is blurring for her, right? And so rough sex can do this, like even if it's just like vanilla rough sex, right? And so even after that, she's going to need some kind of care because her psychology and her like the receptors in her brain are going to be cooked after being raised with like tons of endorphins. Uh, the endorphin high that's like it can be linked closely to being on like morphine. Okay. And adrenaline and all that stuff, and she's going to come down and just feel really low. So even after rough sex, I would suggest doing something of like some kind of aftercare. And surprisingly enough, like this actually bonds her with you more. Okay. Because this is a sign of your leadership. Versus just like fucking, she doesn't know where the fuck she is. And you're like, all right, take 5 minutes to gather your bearings and I'll call you an Uber. Right. Like that doesn't like land. Okay. Unless she's like fairly masochistic and she's going to enjoy that feeling and want to come back for more of that kind of treatment. But I would say that that's not very common. What is very common is girls just kind of feeling opened up like crazy. And, if you are going far, you are pushing things, you are having rough sex, you're getting in her head and she's emotionally opening up and all this sort of thing, like she's going to want some sort of like, ending of the story instead of just abruptly closing the book. Right. And this will actually bond her to you more. Okay. She's going to want to come back for more because it's like a complete circle of the experience. Right. She's had like the flirtation, the ramp up, the getting towards the climax, having the climax, staying there for however long you want. Maybe there's teasing involved before that, and then coming back down, and then there's the caring, and that just kind of like loops the whole thing and ties it into a bow. And she feels like, oh, this was like a full, complete experience for me. I was like raised up, brought to a peak, and then brought back down. And instead of like brought back up, allowing myself to come back down and then just drop off a cliff, saying, all right, see you later. I called you an Uber. They'll be here in 5 minutes. It doesn't mean she has to stay over, but you kind of like continue cultivating the experience as the conductor, right? Keep the whole thing going. And then she's just gonna be like, what? Like, holy shit. Just some aftercare that's like planned, like give her the sense that you know what you're doing. Perhaps you've done this many times before, and this is the feeling that she gets from this. She's like, holy shit, like this guy knows what he's doing, right? It's like I've like stepped into like the Waldorf Astoria or something like that, with the kind of like attention and awareness, right? That like the what is it? The hotel manager has, or what do they call him? The maitre d' or whatever. No, that's a restaurant. You get what I'm saying. But just keep that in mind. Okay. Keep that in mind for like the rough sex or the impact play or whatever you're doing. So let's get back into this. So I was saying that in 2019, a review in current sexual health reports linked the experience of subspace to to endorphin rushes, similar to a runner's high, but tied to the power exchange. So there's this biochemical effect that's happening, this strong surge of chemicals mixing with a psychological state and emotions and physical sensations. So it becomes really, really potent of an experience for her. Okay. And so and especially if you're aware of this sort of stuff and you're managing the situation like a puppeteer, okay, or a symphony conductor. Okay. So a real world example is in hunter gatherer societies studied by anthropologists like Sarah Hardy. Women gravitated to decisive men for protection, translating to modern dynamics where this governance makes her feel claimed. Okay, and this is a feeling that subs just they fucking love it. Like they really, really love it. They love this idea of being claimed, but not by just any man, right? Like or by any dom. It's like a dom of a particular order. Like he's just a certain way that allows her to feel safe enough to want to be claimed, to feel herself being claimed. And because this exists so much amongst female submissives, and I don't know, I haven't talked to enough male subs to really get this, but um, just the notion of being claimed, then I think it's linked to women in general and the whole like arena, the environments, the pathways, the structure, all the elements involved in BDSM. It just allows for her to access that emotional state of being claimed. What do you want to call it, claimed or not, like whatever. But that emotional state, that psychological state, it just makes it a lot easier because there's all these tools and pathways and structures designed to facilitate it, right? So it's really a good system, right? In that sense, anyways. So, so with this governance, it makes her feel claimed. Her body responding with her becoming wet, like it's arousing. The whole notion of being claimed and owned is arousing. And if you don't think so, right? And this is purely objectification, but it's like, and it varies. Like sometimes the objectification is like, you are nothing. You are nothing, but you might as well be a bag of trash. And that lights her the fuck up, right? Because, well, for a number of reasons, okay? Like maybe she's got some masochism going on, but also what I've experienced is where the girl wants to feel like an object because there's so much like mental weight of being her, of having all these expectations from her friends, from her job, from her parents, from school, from everybody around her, everyone looking at her on the street, people she interacts with from day to day. All of this is like pressure for her to show up a certain way, to have a certain identity, and to get into a state safely, consensually, to let go of everything and just be a nothing. To be enough, do like all she is just something that serves a function. She wants to just be useful, and that's it. And it's not even a she, it's just she's become function itself. And this is like really like real objectification. It doesn't necessarily have to go into something degrading. It's more of just a general state, and it can go into degradation if that's just what the people are into. It doesn't always, right? So objectification doesn't necessarily have to be degradation, okay? Because it can also take the form of you're my favorite toy, right? You are my personal toy. You're my favoriteest toy, and that's also objectification because it's not like Jessica, you're my favorite girl to play with, right? We're just omitting your personality and your identity completely, and you're this object for me to play with. But you're mine. You're my favorite toy, and that changes things. So it's there's just so many layers to this, um, and yeah, there's just a ton of layers to this whole idea of being claimed. Um, because it doesn't always go into an object. Sometimes it goes into this idea of being a pet that you care for. Okay, and some people take it to a very extreme, right, where they have like outfits that make them look like pets. Like the leather community, they wear these like leather, like handmade leather masks that turn their face into like a dog, like with a muzzle that comes out and everything. It's crazy. Um, but hey, they're into it, right? They wear like leather paws, and it's like furries but leather. Um, they probably get pissed off if you call them a furry, but to me, it seems very similar. Uh, but just to I say that to illustrate that there's so many different types of being claimed. And even it doesn't have to get into the theatrics of BDSM. It can, that's just kind of what we do and make things bigger. But it can absolutely exist within a vanilla relationship. And historically, that's exactly what marriage was. Marriage was a claiming of a woman whose identity was, it was very, I don't know, it wasn't very complex. It wasn't very well developed. It wasn't sophisticated. Um, it was really simple. And so, for her to be claimed, it meant a lot of different things socially. Uh, typically like ties between families, or kind of the joining of land, or all sorts of stuff. It depends on like where the families were. If they were farmers all the way up to like, I don't know, being dukes or whatever. Uh, but the point is, this idea of being claimed has been around for a very long time, and it's not just a social thing. I think there are emotional aspects that are involved with this. Again, with the freeing her up from mental and emotional load and physical load, right? She's there to serve or whatever. Um, and so there's this idea, it just has been around for a very long time. Like if you look at um, uh, the the name for a husband to be, right? They call him a groom. That's a shortened title, right? They say like, "Oh, where's the groom? Where's the groom?" Right? Or who's the groom? The groom is short for bridegroom. That's the real title for the husband to be, is bridegroom, because his job was to groom her. He was to groom the bride, right? Which is a thoughtful and strategic means of um, cultivating certain behaviors, and that was his job, right? I think like the father kind of laid the foundation, and then the bridegroom was to kind of groom her into his personal needs and desires. And that so this has been around for a long time. And to say that like every girl felt oppressed, angry, trapped, imprisoned, I think is far-fetched. I mean, considering how many women, like even just historically, we're not even talking current day with all those the erotic novels, okay? We're looking at historically, this was existing. All right. There's been literature expressing this stuff that goes back quite a ways. Okay, with like power differentials and things of that nature. You can see this in like in the artwork that's been on like the Greek pottery. Like on Greek pottery, when you can like kind of see a story or something like kind of that goes around. It's like this illustration that you kind of read it and goes around, and it tells a little story. There's plenty of these that are very, very erotic, and it shows women in like owned or submissive states. And so like this isn't like this isn't some sort of new concept of ownership and being claimed. Um, and and to think that like all of the girls were just suffering, I don't think so. Because if the suffering part was natural, then why would there be such tremendous interest in power dynamics coming from women? Like you see the lady sitting there. You go on vacation to like say a resort, you see a woman in her 50s lying there in the sun, right? All oiled up and shit, and she's reading one of those novels with fucking Fabio on the cover, with the muscles and the long flowing hair. You can always find them in the drugstores and stuff. Uh, yeah, she's lying there getting wet, like she's reading that shit, and her pussy's jumping. Okay, like it's everywhere. Okay, like that's women's porn. Okay, and they've been on this shit for a long fucking time. Like the genre has been around for a very long time. It used to be very taboo, and so it was hard, like a long time ago, like Victorian era and stuff like that, to get your hands on some of this literature. But boy, if you did, like it was just the girls were all about it, share with their friends and all that sort of thing. And then it came into mainstream, and there was books that were banned, until it just became more normalized, and now it's everywhere. There's tons and tons and tons of this type of literature, as well as like the subgenres. So if like that wouldn't exist if it was something terrible, like that women in mass felt that these power dynamics and this differential was a bad thing, then it wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar industry. It wouldn't, because women wouldn't buy it. And then there's no sense in trying to sell something that no one wants to buy. But clearly, many people want to buy it. Okay. So, all right, getting back to this. Okay, so some of these like pitfalls that are involved. Let me jump over real quick and see. Oh yeah, I heard. Yeah, let me check that. I heard like this weird little beep. Let me check this. Sorry. Um, Let me check the audio. I heard a beep in my ears and I don't know. Input is sure. Input sure. Yeah, I don't know. Let me just check this. Audio. It's still unsure. So I'm not sure what's going on. So let me know. This was at 2200. Let me know if the audio is still weird. Okay. So let me know. But in the meantime, I'll just answer these, and then I will go back to the lecture. So, in context of being so damn nice and accommodating, does that include situations when dealing with the the mother of the child's mother? That's honestly the situation I find myself being so nice and friendly. Well, it comes down to why you're being so nice and friendly. And that's what it comes down to. Because if you're doing it because you're afraid of friction, well, then that's the problem. Okay. Because you probably do this in other scenarios as well. Um, Probably did it when you met her, did it when you guys were together for however long. Um, and so, what I would suggest is do not make an abrupt shift. Don't make an abrupt shift to being, I guess, more assertive, more boundary holding, because that's going to be too much of an abrupt shift. This is something that you do slowly over time, sort of like what do they call that? Boiling a frog. Yeah. So if you're cooking frogs, you put them in cold water, and you slowly raise the heat of the water, and then they go into shock and then die that way. Uh, Instead of just tossing them immediately into boiling water, because I think what that does, if like you're making frog legs, I think what that does is it makes the body release a bunch of adrenaline, and it contaminates the meat, and it makes it stiff. So I think that's why they boil frogs. But the whole idea is that you're making this change from one state to the next without them knowing. Okay. So that's kind of how you want to go about it. Audio is still a little echoey. It seems to have halfway recalculated itself. It's normal enough to continue the show. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. What if I were to leave and come back? I don't know. Let's just see. right, so maybe this will help coming back in. Yeah, I don't know. I've been having some issues here with I tried Restream and um I don't know. I'm not liking it. It's a little strange, so I may just go back to StreamYard. So that's my advice here. True Color. What I would suggest to you is grabbing the link that Guns put in the chat about getting a free 30-minute consultation, and from here. Okay, so this one. Grab that, set up a consultation, and we can talk a little bit more in detail of your situation. And I can give you some help and some tips on like how to slowly transfer from being such an accommodating wet towel to something of a man that you can respect. Right? You can look at yourself in the mirror and go, uh, this is I don't feel bad about looking at myself, right? So, because I know how that feels. Like I know what that's like, where you are watching yourself, like acting like you shouldn't, but you don't quite know how to not act that way. So I understand where you're at. So it's just a way to kind of figure that out. Okay, cool. Thanks, Guns. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like Restream is just weird, but anyways. All right. So. Well, True Color, I wouldn't worry about I wouldn't worry about getting into power dynamics until you have yourself sorted out. But truth be told, like none of my guys do. I've only had one guy. Was it one? There was one guy who his situation was so well like orchestrated that all he had to do was just add some stuff. Like adding BDSM to his current relationship was easy. It was just like clicking in Lincoln Logs. It was really no problem at all. It was just a matter of him learning to add on to the very solid foundation that he already had. So he had just a really dope, like solid program and system, and his woman was just all about it. She was just very submitted and very committed to his relationship structure, and loved being there. And so he just was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this basically this wonderfully prepared blank canvas. I'm like, okay, let's go. And he was with me for basically 2 weeks, and then he was off running. But he was a very, very smart guy. He worked for the oh shit. What's that government thing? It's not the Department of Defense. One of those things, like that's like full of acronyms. Not NORAD, that's the sensory thing. Um, it was like a four acronym thing. But yeah, he was some sort of government operative thing, and he just really tight in the head, competitive chess player, like that sort of dude. And so I just showed him like basically what the structure was and how to go about it and how to create things. And he was just like, oh, I fucking get it. But most people are not like that. Most people who come to me who are interested in this sort of thing, they have a lot of foundational stuff to work out. They need to work out the foundational and get themselves straight enough to then they can get their relationship straight, and then they can make it into a creative expression. So it's like, like when I was in art school, I had this friend, and she was a photographer. She loved art. I mean, she was just all sorts of art. She loved it. And she thought that you could just kind of like grab paint and a canvas and just do whatever you want because it's art and you can just express yourself and blah, you know? And I suppose you can because of fucking postmodernism and what that bullshit did to art. But and I was like, no, like you need to learn fundamental skills. Like you need to understand perspective and anatomy and color theory and like a whole host of basic things to be able to construct an image that looks like reality if you wanted it to. Then you can start breaking things apart, shatter the rules, do whatever the fuck you want, and knowing those fundamental things, that those skills will just kind of like carry through to whatever sort of crazy shit that you're doing. Uh, and this is what Picasso did. Like he was a trained realistic artist. Like his paintings before Cubism were amazing. He can really do it. And so he was the one who was like, yeah, you got to learn the rules before you break them. So it's the same idea where we kind of like go back to square one and we kind of look at your mind and your identity and how that's currently just really the biggest problem you have. And it's all fucked up. Things are twisted out of whack. Most of how the identity was constructed was not by your choice, not with your consent. And it was just something that you absorbed over a long period of time by various influences, from like school, parents, friends, religion, government, all sorts of things, right? And because we're young, when this is happening, we kind of don't have the wherewithal to step back and go, hold it up to the light and be like, hey, is this really what I want in my life? Like, is the light passing through it? Is this bullshit or is this opaque? Right? We don't have that that skill when we're a child, so we just kind of accept things because we're trusting, and that's what children do. And we don't find out till much later that some of it really just fucks us over. It does not serve us. And we end up suffering because of stupid beliefs, stupid perspectives, stupid habits. And um, and and until you're with someone like a mentor who can like share with you a different angle of how to look at yourself, you will just see yourself as you are and say, hey, this is just how I am. And you hear people saying that all the time. Like, this is just how I am. And it's like, no, this is your conditioned self. And typically you did not put this together on your own. Okay. And so we take some time combing through stuff and, like taking lice out of hair and making it into what's useful and what's not useful. And we get rid of the shit that's not useful. And and that's a battle too sometimes, because some people are like, you know what? I really never believed in God. And just like, and I've always just kind of went with it because it was a family tradition. That's something that just you always did. And now they're afraid because, well, if I give up this tradition, right, this religious tradition, someone's gonna have hurt feelings. Grandma's gonna be upset, mom's gonna be upset, dad or whatever. But that's part of becoming a man. Not necessarily giving away religion, but coming to a position that you are owning and saying, this is where I stand. And I'm sorry that it might make you upset, but that doesn't change things for me. I wish it didn't make you upset, and I hope that you accept me as I am, but I need to accept myself as I am, which is more important because I get one shot at this for all I know. Okay. No one's come back from an afterlife with incontrovertible evidence that an afterlife exists. Okay. So for all we know, this is our fucking shot. Okay. And so I'm not going to go through life with lies. I'm not going to go through life with habits and perspectives, beliefs, traditions, whatever it is that is not authentic to me, and doing things because either that's the way it's always been done, or because that's what other people expect of me. That is not what I'm here for. I'm here to live my life, not some sort of like facsimile life that appeals to people's expectations. And the funny thing is that when you step into your own little world, right? That's when, well, some people are not going to like you, and you're going to lose respect from some people. And then from others, you're going to gain a whole lot of respect. You're going to earn some admiration, because there's going to be a lot of people who would love to do what you're doing, but they're too afraid. They can't. They're like, no, man, grandma's going to be too upset. My professor's going to be too upset, or whatever, parents, whatever the influence is. Or even myself, it's like, man, if I give up this belief in, I don't know, being a fucking Democrat or whatever, uh, like what's going to happen? you know, and this is it's the risk that you take. It's the risk that you take when you become a man. And you say, no, this is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. Okay. And so when we start combing through some of that stuff, then I give you tools to essentially create what I call your own constitution. And from there, that's when you start building that pillar. Okay. Um, it's that pillar that basically is like your coat of arms, is what you stand for. It's your base identity. And it's the Constitution of the United States is sort of like the base identity of this country. Um, and then other things are kind of grown off of that, right? There's cultural norms, there's laws, there's all sorts of different things that kind of grow from that root of the Constitution. And so that's kind of how our own Constitution is. But there's certain tools, there's certain like time and research that's required to creating your own constitution, just as it took time to create the Constitution of the United States. Uh, and it took some deliberation, and I think it took like some months of like a bunch of guys like putting their heads together and say, "Hey, like, what do we stand for? Like, what are we?" You know, I would love to like. Too bad like recordings don't exist back then, but it would have been so cool to hear the discussions of like what goes in and what doesn't. Um, that would have been really interesting. But but you kind of have to have that internal conversation with yourself along with some research and so on. And so now you've gotten rid of some of the things, or maybe all of the things, depending on the guy, from your conditioned past, and brought about a new understanding of what you stand for, while at the same time cutting tethers for the fucking bullshit, codependence, trauma, dense to your ego, a bullshit that you've been carrying around for so long that kind of shapes how you see yourself. Because tons of people basically identify with the bad things that happen to them. So, and that's just empty. Like that's just a hollow form of identity. So we cut those and kind of put some duct tape on there and call it a day. And then that's when we can start really stepping foot. Like the steps that we take after that, those are real steps. Like those are real steps of manhood. And this is like like when a guy comes to that, I'm like, okay, like welcome to like the first steps of your actual life, where you're deciding like who you are and how you're moving, instead of being like ushered to be and show up and act and talk and think in a certain way, you know? But, and then after that becomes normalized, and let's say you're in a relationship, then you can start constructing the program or the system, like whatever you want to call it. And then you can start adding the power dynamics if you wanted to. So, because it's like your head has to be in the right place to bring a woman to subspace, to uh, bring a woman to states of submission and surrender, to where she's not second guessing it. She's not like checking her six or checking the corner of her eye to make sure everything's okay. Like she's really just falling back into the state and loving it, right? Not falling back and being scared and like, okay, I hope this works, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I was waiting for this my whole life. Like, thank you. Okay. Um, and then that's when it gets creative. We're like, okay, let's bring out our inner sadist, okay? Our inner like creative sadist, and see what sort of tension and tempo and temperature fluctuations that we can play with and have fun with, and start basically becoming the Picasso of our own relationship, and start doing whatever, fucking Jackson Pollock on that shit. Just start throwing paint all over, see what happens. Um, and and so it's a process, right? So kind of like going to your thing here of saying like, oh yeah, I want to be understanding of being a dom. Like you have to have an understanding of being yourself as a man first before anything. All right. So, all right, let's go back to the thing. Had like a huge. Okay. So, um, so I'll back up here. Modern sociology, all right, shows how nice guy syndrome or nice guy disorder kills polarity. Okay. Men deferring endlessly to their women, thinking it's respectful, but leaving women frustrated. A 2022 Pew Research poll found 40% of women in relationships cite lack of leadership as an intimacy killer. Embrace the gap and tension builds. Like the gap between the two of you, like you're not the same. Okay. It's good that you're not the same. Embrace the gap and tension builds. Her pussy throbs in anticipation, and which is biology's way of saying bridge this divide. And it's not about force. It's a consensual current, as BDSM teaches. Um, and like, safe words ensure trust, making submission even hotter. Okay, because when there's trust there, she can let go even more. And the more she lets go, the more easily aroused she is. Okay. It's like my girl right now, I just can say like a couple of words to her and she's like wanting to be ravished. She's wanting to be used, let alone the conditioning for like touchless orgasms. So, like when there's trust, it's like you can basically do whatever you want as long as you don't violate that trust. Okay. So shifting what this does is shifting submission as total presence. Okay. So governing scatters a woman's focus outward. Okay. World worries, endless to-dos. Evolutionary psychology explains this as hypervigilance. And it's a trait amplified in women for child rearing. Okay. So, but it fragments. It fragments presence, making sex kind of mechanical. And I was just talking on Clubhouse about this whole idea of like um, sex between a husband and a wife is obligatory. Like she's obligated to have sex with him. And I asked the room and I was like, and it like really kind of like threw people. And I said, like, guys who are in here, flash your mics or whatever, if you agree with this statement that you enjoy having sex with a reluctant woman. And like no guy said anything. It was like a dead silent room. And I'm like, okay, so sex can't be obligatory. Right? Because if she's not feeling it, then like you can't have her want obligated sex because she doesn't want to do it. And you just said you don't want to have sex with a woman who doesn't want to fuck. So, and if she wants to, then you don't need obligatory sex. She just wants to have it. So the whole thing was just very weird. But yeah, you don't want mechanical sex in a relationship. Okay. So sociologically, in high pressure cultures like ours, this leads to attention economy. I'm sorry, attention economy burnout, as Zygmunt Bauman described in Liquid Love, right, which is a book of his. Relationships diluted by distractions, right? And this is something that's coming up a lot, where basically the influences of social media are like killing our brains and making it difficult for us to actually connect, because we're having this what did he call attention economy burnout. So we're just getting cooked, like our brains are cooking because of social media. So governed, all right, her focus turns inward, all right. I think I misspoke before. Ungoverning scatters a woman's mind outward. Okay, so a non-governed mind of a woman scatters. If it gets fractured and it scatters, all right, like taking like a shard of glass, and just dropping it on a cement and go just everywhere goes everywhere. Okay, a governed mind, her focus turns inward. Okay, so no self spectating, just body. And this mirrors mindfulness practices, right? Accepting limits frees you. That and it's a strange concept, but like I forget who said it, but it was like basically like by bringing discipline in your life, you will experience freedom. And by not being disciplined, you actually imprison yourself. And I think if you consider that, of like what that might mean and what that entails, it makes a lot of sense. So, studies from John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness research shows that presence heightens sensation. So, touch becomes electric, voice becomes resonant. In her, blood flows right between her legs, her clit swells, her lips swell. She becomes very wet. And a 2016 fMRI study in PLOS 1 second or PLOS 1 scanned women's brains during arousal and submission scenarios deactivated the prefrontal cortex, which is where planning and the worry center of the brain is. Okay. So it's like her arousal turns off that part of her brain. Okay. And which is ramping up the limbic activity for pleasure. So, like, if she's in a like a planning stage, okay, thinking, planning, worrying, considering, okay, that's the mind being fractured, right? It's scattered all over the place. And then it gets further disrupted by being swept up part of that by social media, and then gets scattered even more. And then, like, certain emotions and certain things get triggered. Um, whether she's seeing like a funny cat video or some like terrible injury, somebody like in a gym or something like that. I hate those videos, like watching like joint dislocations because someone's lifting something too heavy. Oh, I fucking hate that shit. But anyways, so her prefrontal cortex is completely engaged. So that's turning off her ability to submit, her emotions from flowing, her feeling more relaxed. Okay. Um, and then her limbic system, which is connected to arousal, she won't be able to. Sorry, she won't be able to engage this. Right. So BDSM exemplifies. So in scenes, subs enter flow states. Okay. And this is sort of like a total immersion into the scene. And there was this 2021 study where they were looking at people in BDSM. They interviewed 200 women in kink, and 85% said submission made orgasms even more intense. Right, it made their pussies more responsive because the dom governs. They would just feel right. So it was almost like, because there was trust and good governing, the line would blur between experiencer and what is experienced, the woman. Okay. And it's almost like she becomes the experience. And that's like a very unique situation. Okay. But it has to do with that prefrontal cortex turning off. Okay. And so when it does, she can enter a flow state. She can become totally immersed into whatever's going on. Excuse me. So let me see here. So insecure governance, right? This is the bad side of these things. It backfires. All right. So this causes her minds to wander or tighten. And it's just not good because it reverts her back to the place of being bound, being bracing herself for things, and engaging her rational mind, and it just gets her out of her body and just in her head. Okay, you want to like turn off the brain and bring her into her body, and this is where a woman is most free. This is why, like with my girl, like I introduced her to certain types of hypnosis, and I talked to her and said, like, how do you feel about like bimbo hypnosis? And I explained it to her, and she's like, oh, that sounds like really interesting. It sounds kind of hot. And so I created some bimbo hypnosis tracks for her to listen to, and I picked up some as well from like other sources. And basically, it's just to turn her into like this mindless, pleasure-seeking, horny bimbo, and feeling really good and feeling really pretty, feeling bubbly, to just be in this state. Okay. And I imagine that it's got to feel really good. Right. I haven't been present with her yet since giving her these, but, we'll see. Uh, like, relaxing, having her listen to one, and then see what happens with the behavior afterwards. So, but anyways, let's see here. So when done right, okay, this governance, all right, it becomes liberation, evolutionary reward for trusting a leader, sociological balm against chaos. Her body's yes is the wetness that occurs, and it's that imitation born of presence. So now the psychology of being claimed, all right. So existential relief in a finite life. So evolutionary psych, it roots this in pair bonding. Okay. So women with higher reproductive costs seek committed dominance.
being claimed or governed as his triggers this security desire. Okay. And women, they often fantasize about being possessed by strong men because it's linked to survival. It's linked to children, like the safety of children and them being able to survive and move on. Okay. Sociologically, this clashes with individualism. All right. So Ulrich Beck's Risk Society, which was a paper, makes commitment scary, right? Yet in a 2019 Gallup survey, found women in traditional dynamics report higher sexual satisfaction, right? The thrill, agency overpowered consensuality or consensually. So agency overpowered consensually. In BDSM, collaring symbolizes this. Subs describe it as erotic ownership, pussy aching from the psychological pull. And there was a 2014 journal, a positive sexuality study, found BDSM women they score higher on well-being, attributing it to claims dynamics reducing existential angst. So the whole notion, all right, is basically that going into submission is is beneficial for her emotional states and her psychological well-being, provided it's got the containment required so that this can remain in that state in a comfortable fashion. All right. Um, and because, frankly, I don't think that this whole notion of individualism actually brings about happiness. I think that when people say that they are, when women say that they say that because that's their only choice. Because if like you're in it, right? And you say like, all right, fuck all this shit. It's just me against the world. I'm gonna build this thing. I'm gonna do this thing. Maybe I got some friends, whatever. But it's all about me. And then anxiety increases, stress increases, worry increases. You get brought out of your body and get stuck in your head. Okay. You're no longer connected to your vagina. You're no longer connected to your breasts or your hips, right? Your torso, your skin. You're different. Okay. You're not connected. And I'm sure it sucks. I'm sure it's not a pleasant feeling. Okay. But you must plod on. The show must go on. And because there's no other choice. Because to say, shit, I fucked up, I should flip things around. Well, like what exactly would one do? Well, what would a girl do in that situation? Say like, you've got a girl in say like her mid to late 20s. She's gone to college, maybe she's got 1 or 2 degrees in a certain field. She's moved to New York City. She's got a tiny walk-up apartment the size of a closet. She works all the time. She does, maybe 12 hours, does like 10, 12 hours, working really hard in, let's say, like the, fashion design industry. And she's just grinding and grinding and grinding. Okay. Going out every now and then, drinking, doing this, doing that, maybe occasionally hooking up with a guy here and there. But it's like the time spent, the majority of the mental and emotional and physical space is spent in this place of conquest, work, structure, get in your head and get it done sort of place. Okay. Where it's not engaging your feelings, it's not engaging anything. It's gauging spreadsheets and trajectories and looking at trends and forecasting and doing like budget sheets and all sorts of stuff, sourcing materials, talking to China, talking to Cambodia, talking to this, talking to that. Like, it's just in the head, in the head, in the head, no body whatsoever. And then when you do go home, it's like you're just going to crash. And you do this year after year after year, pull in, say, like 5 years, work just grinding this. Okay. And what's the alternative? If she wakes up one day and says, you know what? This was a bad choice. I don't feel myself anymore. I don't feel connected to my body. I don't feel like a beautiful girl anymore. I feel just like this other thing. Yes, woman, yes, female, but not the same. And maybe it's like maybe she misses it, or maybe she just feels completely disconnected and doesn't know, like there isn't anything to miss. Like it's just void. Like What's she gonna do? How can she turn that around? She's 5 years in. She's got a 3 year lease on her little apartment. What's she gonna do? Go where? Maybe if there's a good family at best, like go home, try to reconnect with herself. But it's hard at that point because truly for a woman to fully, like really fully move into this space, okay? Because like think about it, how can one turn off their prefrontal cortex by themselves? How can you do that? Maybe with like really intense meditation training or something like that. Like it'll probably take a long time. I'm sure not it's not impossible, but to develop that skill probably takes a great deal of effort and a great deal of time. So, what's a fast way? You get with a man who knows what he's doing and he can bring you there. He can shut off your prefrontal cortex or shut off her prefrontal cortex. And, of course, with trust, she has to trust him in order to follow him enough for that to occur. She can slip into these flow states, immerse herself into the experience of him. And we're not just talking sexually, this can happen non sexually as well. It's just the sexuality just makes it easier and more intense. But then he's like leading her otherwise, whether she's working or not. And so like whether it's like regularly happening throughout the day where her prefrontal cortex is turning off, or it happens after 5 p.m., whatever. After 5 p.m. and every weekend, okay, and every morning until she gets to work. Like it doesn't matter. It's just there's time when it's off and she can feel free from the burden of her own mind, from the burden of her own emotions, from those dozen different voices that are in her head, from anxiety, from stress, from worry. Okay. And she can just be. And it's not like a mental thing. The mind's gone. The state of being is a physical sensation, it's an emotional sensation, it's a psychological state that she's become, not something that she's in. And it's like you need somebody to do that. Freedom comes from adhering to the containment of another. That's how it works. I mean, this kind of freedom, the freedom where the mind is not working anymore. It's not spinning up at 12,000 RPMs. It's just doing its thing, right? It's just relaxed. It's in a state and not moving. So I don't know. So where did I leave off here? Oh, the sociologically, this clashing with individualism. So yes, women in traditional dynamics report higher sexual satisfaction, right, where there's polarity. And then BDSM, it just kind of increases that with collaring symbolizing ownership, symbolizing like a structural ownership, even if spiritual ownership, depending on how they take it. And women in BDSM scoring higher in well-being, attributing it to claims dynamics and reducing existential angst. So the feedback loop, all right. So his external governance at the ruling life becomes pheromone. So the evolutionary cue is competent man equals provider. All right. And this isn't just providing stuff, it's provision in all senses. So her body responds. Okay. Her heart rate increases, her pussy gets wet, starts jumping around. And in matriarchal societies, just a side note here, societies like the Mosuo, if I'm pronouncing that right, women still seek dominant lovers for passion per ethnographic studies. Okay. So even in late matriarchal societies, they're to have good sex, they're still seeking out, and to mate, they're still seeking out, the alphas, basically, the dominant lovers. Um, and claim her, and the psychology aligns. Submission as antidote to loneliness, body opening, and gratitude. So, governance structures where submission surrenders, in evolutionary psych, sociology studies, they all converge. Okay, women's bodies, they crave, and we're talking just the body, right? The brain, the mind, the physical body, like all this stuff, it craves burden release, right? And as I explained, one cannot release themselves from like whatever their entrapment is. Like it's impossible. They can relax to a certain degree. Okay. Like it gets them maybe like a little quieter, maybe it's like less chatter. But this is why like there's drinking. We're like after a 10-hour day working in fucking Manhattan, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go for drinks. And then that becomes a regular thing to quiet the mind, to relax the body. Okay. A man can I can do that for my girl without needing a drop of alcohol. Just talking to her, just a simple touch, let alone anything else more intense. Okay. So, but their bodies, the truth is, their bodies, women's bodies, their minds, their emotions, their brains, everything, the whole system, the nervous system, all of it, it craves to be released from burden. Women do not fare well with extended burden. They're not like outfitted with this. Like we just look at the history. Just look at where we came from, like in terms of evolution. Okay. Drop strong for soft, and the pussy gets wet. Like it's that simple. Okay. Eroticism grows when stress decreases. So why be in a stressful position? Okay. Now I understand not every system is perfect. Okay. Some girls, they have wet towels for a man and they wish that he wasn't. Then they don't want to tell him how to be a man because that'll just piss her off. Because, like, why would she have to do that? And then if he does it, then he's just following her lead and following her commands. And it's not natural. Okay. She doesn't want to have to tell the dude to be who he's supposed to be. He should just be that already. Okay. So, um, eroticism in that, eye closing moment with the man commanding, mental release triggers the flood. Okay. And that's the flood of her mind, is the flood of emotion, it's the flood of her body relaxing and releasing. It's just what happens. Like you provide structure and things loosen up. It's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, there's like counterculture, like rhetoric, right? There's like counter rhetoric out there that's basically like saying like, well, that's the men controlling and like, oh, they've controlled us for so long. And to a degree, women are correct. Women have controlled, or I'm sorry, men have controlled women uh, from an external means for a very long time. And that's not debatable. Okay. But this is not that. This is me offering a structure in which you can let go of control in like particular scenarios, whether it's like just in the bedroom. And this is how like dynamics are shaped. They're like each one has a different shape. It's not all like 24/7, right? Not every dynamic is a 24/7 dynamic. Some are the minute you get home. Like the entire home is like that, but it's only in the home. And when you go to work, it's different. Like we're just the two coupled, we're working, we're doing our thing, we check in doing this, but there's no power dynamic. Okay. But then you come home, boom, that dynamic turns on like a light switch. Sometimes it's just in the bedroom. Sometimes it's just on the weekends. Sometimes it's only when you vacation. Everyone's life is different, with different demands and different preferences. But the fact remains is that this structure provides relaxation, and not just for girls. Okay. when a dom, and I've talked to doms who talked about, um, like a dom version of subspace. I guess they call it dom space or something like that. I don't know. And they've also talked about dom drop, which I've never experienced before. But the it, it's a place of relaxation as well, because you can kind of like, I don't know, you can settle in more, you can express more. Uh, you're just there's just more leeway. There's more real estate to explore, right? Psychological real estate, physical real estate, ideas and experiments. Like there's just so much you can do, that it's freeing, and that liberation, is it's exciting, but it's also relaxing at the same time. Relaxing in the sense because now you can kind of like fully be yourself. You can let go of pretenses, right? My day-to-day life, it's like I I don't go around like expressing nor telling people that I'm a sadist. Like I'm not doing that. Okay. It's not socially acceptable, and really I don't see how it's beneficial for anybody else, but I still have to keep that part of myself under wraps. So when I'm in my dynamic, right, and which is a 24/7 dynamic, I can express this part of myself anytime I want. Literally anytime I want to do this. Now, does that mean that circumstantially it's always going to meet, like the pathway to continue on? No, because like, I've got my life, she's got her life, and sometimes these things don't align. But it still doesn't mean I have that. It doesn't mean that that freedom is no longer there. Okay, just circumstantially, it just can't be expressed at that point. But I, there's no restrictors on it anymore. Okay, I can express it anytime. It's just because of circumstances, on the rare chance, like it might not be able to go through, but that's okay. All right, that's totally fine. So, the key takeaway here is that, in our finite lives, fighting nature wastes time. It's a complete waste of time, right? Embrace power dynamics, embrace governance, right? Evolutionarily, sociologically, it's truth. And dynamics ignite. They ignite from this sort of thing. And BDSM proves it. There's enough studies to prove it, where you have like well-respected, researchers, theologians, and so on. And it's been proven, and that structured submission unlocks ecstasy. Like there's no there's no like opposing truth to that. It's raw, it's real, and it's up to you, if you want to bring this into your life. No, I'm not trying to advocate for people to join my program or anything like that. That's really not what this is about. But what what it really is just to kind of give people this idea that one should consider looking outside oneself, and consider not listening um to the masses. Like looking outside oneself as far as like what you think is proper right now, and then also not listening to what's going on outside, as far as like the voices of society telling you like what's right and what's wrong. Because I look at guys, and they are really twisted. They're really twisted up because they've got this battle happening, and the battle is, I'm hearing my own calling. I'm hearing something that's occurring from the depths of my soul, that's crawling out from the marrow in my bones, and this is in stark contrast to the messages that I'm receiving from the environment around me, which is telling me, no, don't be controlled. Don't study stoicism. Don't don't be grounded. Don't think for yourself, um, because that's selfish. Okay. Emote more, feel more. Um, you know, what is it like? Bond with the collective more, like the Borg. Okay, resistance is futile, and it really like become one of us. And when you do that, you lose sense of who you are. You don't really have a very strong sense of self, and this makes you not rely on yourself, right? So like if your identity feels cloudy, how can you bet on yourself? How can you rely on your own judgment? You can't. Then you start kind of deferring to outside of you, right? You looking, watching like what groups of people are doing, and like, okay, that seems reasonable. I'm going to side with that, and so now your brain starts being sucked into groupthink, and you become part of like a hive collective, like the Borg, and so you're just kind of like slowly over time becoming a drone, and being a drone is not, it's not a good place to be for a man. It's not a good place to be for a woman. But the way I see it, and maybe this is my own hero complex, is that I think that you can save women from this nonsense that's happening out there, but not in huge swaths. Like that just can't happen. You're not going to get on some pulpit and change women's minds. It's not going to happen. So stop arguing with them, stop criticizing, stop getting into back and forths into the comment sections of videos and posts. It's just a waste of time. Um, really, you're just probably sexually frustrated. But what can happen is, you know, bringing a woman to peace through structure, one woman at a time. And really, that's more than enough. If there's more men who are leading, right, who are learning how to lead, how to be present, how to have presence, how to influence, and having a good set of morals and codes, values, principles, and rules to rely on as a means of self governing. And then at that point, you can then govern another because your world it's opaque. It's got some legs, and you can feel it. Like you can like feel that you're not like second guessing yourself. You feel that you know who you are. And this makes it so much easier for a girl to get to know who you are. And maybe it's not something that she can put down on paper, but it comes about as like a, well, through her nervous system for one, her limbic system, something maybe to do with her instincts, and that female sixth sense. Okay, her intuition. And this is how she's learning about you, because her body is learning about you, even without even being touched, right? Then we're not even talking about sex yet, but it's just when she's in your presence, and her nervous system will tell you, well, I'm sorry, her nervous system will tell her that you're okay, that you're not a threat. Okay. You're not, and by being a threat, I don't mean being nonviolent. I mean being manipulative, having, covert contracts, having ulterior motives, having fake nice guy shit on the front end so that you can get in her pants, or just change the way she perceives you. Like this is, this is the danger, right? The danger is not in a man who tells her exactly who he is. That's not the danger. The danger is actually these nice guys out here. And what's even worse is the nice guys who are drinking their own Kool-Aid, who actually believe their own bullshit. They're like, no, I'm not a charlatan. I really do mean to be this nice. The fuck you do. You're a fucking liar. You lie so much that you believe it yourself. No man is actually a nice guy. He's conditioned. He's conditioned to be a nice guy. That shit's not real. And so what she feels safety with is actually a dangerous man. And the person she feels less safe with, ironically, is a safe man. And this hasn't anything to do with getting into fights or physically protecting her because you're a dangerous guy. Nothing like that. Okay. It's just that, so-called like dangerous men, if we can just kind of, you know, take that term, dangerous man, and make it out of focus, right? Make it blurry and just catch the essence behind that and what all of that entails and how that might make a girl feel that produces safety. Now you put in there a guy who's not that. He's a safe man. All right. Safe guy, nice guy disorder, whatever you want to call it. Make that term go out of focus as well and just catch the essence behind it. And you can understand how that would not make a woman feel safe because it's full of illusions, it's full of deception, it's full of hidden motives, it's full of using her. Okay. A dangerous man will possess a woman, but he's not using her for anything before. I mean, except maybe like her uterus if he wants to have children, but he's not using her in the way that the safe guy is. The safe guy, he uses girls to feel safe for himself. Isn't that fucked up? The safe guy will present himself as safe to use the girl for his own emotional safety. That's screwy. So it's not about her at all. And he's actually probably more self-absorbed than the dangerous man. Go figure. But he'll believe himself up and down until he's blue in the face that he is the most self-sacrificing dude in the world. He will think that this is true when it's entirely not. Everything he does is to ensure his emotional safety. That's his primary drive. And woman can sense this. I think she can sense that there's just something off. But, maybe he's good looking, maybe he has other things going for him. He's not like really a threat, like in terms of her physical safety or something like that. So she might use him for a time. And that's just how it goes. And then she breaks up with him, and then that guy has his red pill rage moment, and then, starts to wake up or whatever. And then he becomes addicted to the red pill cult. And then eventually, if he's lucky, he'll meet someone who kind of wakes him up out of that illusory dream state. And then he starts wondering who he is. And that's the first real question he's ever asked in his entire life. That's really like the only real question. So who am I? But once that gets sorted out, man, just things are just so much better, so much easier. Because worry and anxiety, all of that shit just goes away. All goes away. So, okay. So, I am going to get out of here. Just realized I got to write myself a note. So, I'm going to let you go. This has been a good show. I apologize for that. I know I should have checked my mic when I heard that weird beeping noise. That was bizarre. So, but I apologize for that technical faux pas. I hope you learned something this evening, right? About why girls enjoy captivity, why they enjoy governance, why they enjoy containment. And it's really because just genetics, biology, psychology, it all just goes towards the same points, which is liberation through the reduction of strain and burden. And most of it is mental. Most of that burden that girls carry is mental and emotional, psychological and emotional. So it doesn't matter. Like if you're thinking like, oh man, she can't submit unless like I'm a, what are the primary breadwinner and she just stays home. Like, nah. Like that'd be cool and all, but it's not necessary because the actions that are done don't necessarily dictate the state. And you can absolutely counter these things, by being an influential person, right? Your influence can counteract pretty much everything. All right, so we're going to leave this here. I appreciate everyone for joining me this evening, and thank you for watching on the replay. Be sure to check the links in the description. Grab up my books that are in Amazon. The Codex of the Sovereign Order, the Annals of the Yielded Queen, and How to Be a Dominant Lover. And then go on over to the website and sign up for a free consultation. Okay, we're coming into spring. This is the time for change, right? Spring is the time of rebirth. So start now, okay? And then by summertime, you should be well on your way to feeling different, feeling better, okay? And then fall will be the main event, right? Where you'll really start kind of getting into your stride as a man. And we're talking internally here, right? It's not about changing your career or whatever that shit is, your fitness. I don't know. It's really how you relate with yourself. But that in itself alters everything that's connected to it externally. So by doing this, you will be able to influence your work. You will be able to influence your health. You will be influencing your finances. You will be influencing your relationships by changing who is engaged with all of those things. Okay. All right. If you have any questions, hit me up on the website. There is a contacts page, and I'll look for you there. Okay. Oh, and then the last thing, there is the dominance field guide. So if you want like a little primer about dominance, there is some really good workable stuff in there. You want to get your hands on that, just follow the link to that, which is also, it's in the chats here. It's in the description to get your free dominance field guide. All you do is just go to the link, plug in your email, and then it's sent to you. And then after that, you'll just get a series of 7 emails over the next 7 days, just furthering your education. All right. I only made it 7, so I don't turn into a pest. And I promise you it's helpful. Okay. Until next time, we will see you on the next one. Take it easy.